details, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. And a time of thinking and thinking ahead. They're the ones who coming. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Trust in religion may be reaching a new low due to sexual abuse cases and other emerging stories involving religious organizations. If you talk to the average person, you may hear different views when it comes to religion, depending on who you talk to. Some may either shy away from the conversation, and some may just focus on their own interreligious practices that they individually hold dear to. But as new stories keep emerging about the new age of beliefs, the reality is that something is slowly eating away at people's traditional beliefs in the church and God, which is really making revival hard for ministers trying to spread the gospel, the good news, and attract new believers. This story is still developing. Jesus. Hallelujah is the way, young blades. A new NBA player, a few NBA players took a trip to the Vatican, adding to this story. I guess they wanted to meet with Pope Francis in a push for social change. The meeting was mainly focused on economic injustice and inequality occurring in the players' communities. Keep an eye on story number 1 because we're getting around the holiday season and kids ask questions and people ask questions. They want to know about God and beliefs. But there's something happening in story number 1 where people may be losing trust and faith in the Bible, and some people may be drawing nearer to it. It's a cycle that flows constantly. But story number 1, still alive, even in other faiths too. So keep an eye on that story, especially as we approach this holiday season. There may be something more, much more than just a present under the tree. It may involve spirit, the soul, and the divine will of you to believe. Keep an eye on story number 1. Big headline that made it in this week. Story number 2. Foreign affairs under Biden may just involve intelligence briefings and mediation between other nations. Israeli minister says that Netanyahu held secret meetings with Saudi Crown Prince, according to a CNN report. Now, if this story is true, this would be a first for the two leaders. This story also highlights the Trump effect. Trump and Pompeo have been pressuring the two countries to normalize relations as stated in the article. Now, if Saudi Arabia and Israel were to normalize relations, analysts believe, though this is good news because they say that other Sunni nations will soon follow, which could result in some peaceful solutions in the Middle East. So this is a big headline. Germany's Angela Merkel is worried about poor countries being able to afford vaccinations. At the G20 summit held virtually this year, the world's richest nations have committed to supporting poor countries affected by the pandemic, according to a BBC article. So people are really concerned, especially world leaders are really concerned about poorer nations. So there's a lot going on when we talk about foreign policy, foreign affairs inside of story number 2, and that's why I made it in this week. Story number 3. Police have been through a lot in 2020. Can you say hell? Responding to a domestic violence dispute, 2 New York police officers were wounded. This adds to a number of police headlines this year involving hostility towards the police. In 2020 alone, the police had to deal with protesting, chaos, and even circulating headlines about defunding the police themselves. Now, it will be amazing to see how this story develops under a new administration in Washington, D.C., because what can people do, or what would the world look like without the police? Big headline. New claims have surfaced that Chicago police officers use brutal, violent, and unconstitutional methods to maintain order when dealing with protesters. Victims are claiming that the officers beat them with batons and spray them with chemicals in a federal lawsuit. The story goes on on to say that the protesters were they were exercising their First Amendment rights and they were brutally attacked. So officers, and they're saying that officers destroyed the protesters' property and even used foul language while these protesters were exercising their First Amendment rights. This story is just one of many in the 2020 year of chaos. Big headline that made it this week. Keep an eye on story number 3. That's why it just won't go away. Big headline. Story number 4. A double dip recession is unlikely, according to Forbes, but the news may say other. All analytical data is showing that more job losses are coming, but one Forbes article shies away from recession talks. The article says that $70 billion is the estimated amount of unpaid rent that will pile up by January if lawmakers do not extend eviction moratoriums or make any deals involving rent forgiveness programs. Now, in a rant on Twitter last week, Democrat rep from Minnesota, Ilhan Omar, she suggested canceling rent and mortgage payments immediately. But the question is who will pay? And how will the person who owns the property pay the bills, pay the bank for that property? Big question. Now, one report in USA Today highlights how 2 small banks failed in October, while also stating that there could be more due to businesses having a hard time paying off their loans. Now, there's a lot going on when you talk about people saying that people should cancel their rents. I think AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was in the mix. Now, if Congress doesn't act now, 12 million could lose jobless benefits the day after Christmas. There's a lot going on inside of story number 4, and that's why I made it this week. Well, those are our top 4 international headlines and developing news stories. Almost was talking about free and getting some relief. Almost caught me off my games. Well, I'll be right back. I'm going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. You're on The Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back. If you want to check out the stories that almost made it in or did make it in, go to our Twitter feed on our website. Check out everything. All of the sources are there. And go to the website. It's method8inc.com, method8inc.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. So let's waste no time. Ba-da-bum-bum-bum. I am a poor boy too. Ba-da-bum-bum-bum. Me and my drum. Let's get to it. Woo! Ooh! Ah! Story number 5. How real is the student loan debt problem? After some weeks back, one story showed that canceling student loan debt would impact the economy greatly. But a new study shows that canceling student loan debt would actually yield no results in boosting the U.S. economy. So there's 2 stories that are kind of facing off. Joe Biden will be under a lot of pressure by borrowers looking for relief. Student loan debt sits at a staggering $1.7 trillion. That's a lot of money. And that means that 1 in 6 American adults owes money to not only federal loan debtors, but private loans. They owe money for them also. So keep an eye on story number 5. This is a big headline. Now, there's also another story circulating about a petition to cancel student loan debt, this petition got over 800,000 signatures. This is giving credence to the reality that student loan debt really is a big problem that is holding a lot of Americans back from what they believe is reaching their fullest potential. Keep an eye on story number 5. Big headline. Big developing news story that made it this week. Story number 6. Only time will tell what COVID-19 has done to the education system, or has already done. As cases continue to rise amongst students and teachers, school districts are going through hell trying to keep kids educated. Many districts have had to go back to online learning, while some private and public schools feud over who gets the final say in what decisions their schools get to make. Now, in this ongoing developing story, only time will tell what real lasting effects the COVID-19 coronavirus, will have on an already struggling and heavily in need of money education system. So keep an eye on story number 6. Has a lot to do, especially if you have children that are in school. So keep an eye on story number 6. Big headline, big developing news story. Story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. What will it take to recover from the damage already brought on by COVID-19? From school closings, restaurant bankruptcies, to numerous startups and family-owned businesses going under, the COVID-19 damage has officially been done. But now that there is a vaccine, numerous new headlines are emerging about what it will take to recover from the wrath brought on by the virus. But it may be a little too late for some people who have already lost everything. As states prepare to issue vaccines to the public, what makes this story unique is the fact that there now may be light at the end of a very dark tunnel. Now, with a recovery plan in sight, and as this story continues to develop, a lot of people will be hoping and praying for some more government relief. More than 19,000 restaurants have permanently closed. That's a big headline. China's Xi Jinping is trying to push the idea of a global COVID-19 tracking system using QR codes. He wants to do this to help fast-track international travel and business. The system is basically just a barcode that stores traveler health and travel information, which could help curb the spread of the virus. So that's a big headline. Now, because of COVID-19, the meatpacking industry has been forced may be forced to make some changes under a Biden administration. This is an addition to what is actually going on inside of story number 7. 221 workers were killed because of the coronavirus, and more than 42,000 were infected with the disease. Now, OSHA, O-S-H-A, the acronym, has been very busy at meatpacking plants, if you did not know. But the sad part about it is they've only fined 6 out of 500 meatpacking plants that are listed inside of the report. So out of 500 meatpacking plants, only 6 of them were fined. Now that's after 42,000 workers have been infected and 221 have been killed. So this is one of those stories that makes you wonder. Big headline. Another headline, one headline in USA Today reads that the new COVID-19 vaccines could return the United States economy back to near normal by the end of 2021. This is a good sign that a recovery is in sight. So there's some good news at the end of this big story, that we may be seeing the end of this beast that has really cost a lot of people money, jobs, resources, arguments, health. Story number 7 is a big headline. That's why I made it to the top 2 this week. Story number 8 and the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week. At the moment, the American people's main concern seems to be, and I emphasize, how even more divided the country has become over the years. A number of NPR stories highlighted a central concern this week from Americans about how the country has become so divided on so many issues that keep reoccurring over time. Division and hate-filled crimes have always been a thorn in the side of a country that promotes unity and freedom, and that's along with justice for all. So shout out to the peacemakers and the people trying to keep the unity. Rudy Giuliani suggested that someone needs to cut the head off of Democrat leaders in a Fox News interview, showing a growing divide in not only America but Washington, D.C. as well. To add on to the story, Mississippi governor is calling for $3 million to be set aside towards patriotic education funding and a push to get Americans to better understand the history of this country, which many already know to be brutal. You can't shy away from the facts. The governor's push to use history to heal the wounds of struggling Americans may be hard to accomplish due to how, and I'll say this again, to how brutal the facts that history in the founding of this nation, the facts that it was very, very brutal. But every opinion and fact could spark a good conversation. That's what's great about democracy is you can voice your opinion. So good luck once again to the governor of Mississippi and to all the peacemakers and unifiers out there. I think if you have something good, just stick to it and try your best to make things happen. There's paperwork on almost every issue that is dividing this country already. So people may just need to get on the same page and just be thankful that you can wake up in the morning, stretch out, go look for a job, start a business, start a rate. Big headline. That's why I made it this week. Well, those are our top 8 international headlines in developing news stories that made it this week, along with the local ones. As usual, I like to thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people in the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just the mediator, the man in the middle. If you want to show us some support, all you have to do is visit our website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. I hope you had a good holiday, good Thanksgiving, and I hope you're prepping up for the Christmas time, or Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. I'll go through 200 or more stories next week to find something very, very magical this time of year. So thank you so much for tuning in this week. I'm headed out to go to chill, eat some turkey, and have a feast for myself and prepare for next week. Thank you so much for tuning to the media this week with me, Brian West. Have a good week, everybody. Peace.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The mediator is here.